The last time I checked, everyone living and breathing and talking right now has a brain. Last time I checked, feelings come from your brain, emotions come from your brain. So guess what? Mental health is always on the horizon with me.
Welcome to the Wits and Weights podcast. I'm your host, Philip Pape, and this twice-a-week podcast is dedicated to helping you achieve physical self-mastery by getting stronger, optimizing your nutrition, and upgrading your body composition. We'll uncover science-backed strategies for movement, metabolism, muscle, and mindset with a skeptical eye on the fitness industry so you can look and feel your absolute best. Let's dive right in. Wits and Weights community, welcome to another episode of the Wits and Weights podcast. Today I'm chatting with certified personal trainer and mental health advocate, Marc Paisant. You'll learn how Marc turned adversity into a mission to raise mental health awareness, including the essential role of physical fitness in maintaining mental health and the importance of seeking support and maintaining balance. We'll explore misconceptions about and how we end the stigma surrounding mental health. Marc Paisant is a certified personal trainer and the creator and host of the 6amrun.com podcast, which I had the honor of being on recently. It's how we met, and the Relatively Normal podcast. In his show, he shares his experiences with ADHD, anxiety, and depression. He shows that no one is alone, and there's always someone willing to listen and assist when it comes to coping and managing all kinds of stress. He's an advocate for therapy and counseling and talks about his years of therapy that he's used to manage his mental health. As a former collegiate athlete, Marc uses physical fitness to assist with his mental health. He has learned that both can be combined and used to help work through any life issue, and his goal is to inspire others to ask for help and to end the stigma when it comes to mental health and awareness. Marc, thank you, man, for doing this, and welcome to the show.
Philip, I appreciate it. This is my honor. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Cool, man. So I really do want to learn about your story. You know, you've turned this personal journey of yours, managing ADHD, anxiety, depression, into a platform for raising mental health awareness. Can you walk us through the key moments of that journey and how they've shaped your current mission?
Oh, wow. Well, you know, I mean, there are key moments. You're absolutely right. And it's, at the time, I didn't know there were key moments. Like, it just happened in my life.
In hindsight, right?
Yeah, hindsight. You know, growing up, and I won't spend too much time on it, but growing up, I was a very sensitive kid. I mean, I was an athlete. I was, you know, one half of a set of twins. And, you know, Michael and I played basketball and soccer growing up, went to the same schools. You know, for the most part, had the same friends, and we were just known as the twins, and we couldn't have been, you know, more different because, you know, he had that quote unquote, that alpha male personality, that macho guy. He didn't really show a lot, and he was really for sake of not finding a better word, the masculine one, and the traditional masculine one, where I was the one that was, you know, would be sensitive, would cry, I was the one that always wanted to, you know, show emotion. And, you know, growing up, I thought, you know, something was wrong with me. I thought that was the wrong thing. I always tried to be like him, even into my early 20s and late 20s, probably, be honest with you. And there's a lot of comparison internally, externally. He got better grades. He excelled in sports faster than I did. And then he got a lot more attention from the girls when we were younger. So at that time, like, self-esteem is just, I mean, on the outside looking in, you would think everything's great with this guy. Like, he plays, you know, goalkeeper. He plays basketball. He's got a lot of friends. He's very personable. He has, he makes people laugh. But, you know, the masking started at an early age. And then as I get into college, you know, a key point in college was me being thrown into just those shark infested waters of everyone was the man at their school. You know, my guy, I was all-state goalkeeper. I was, you know, all county in soccer. I was recruited, and you go to a place like Clemson where everyone was that and more. And I really couldn't handle it, to be honest with you. So that was my first take at therapy, because I didn't know what else to do. I had no one to talk to. I didn't think anybody wanted to listen. And And I finally started just that journey for self-exploration and understanding that I could write my own story. Like I could make my own happiness. I didn't have to look for external motivations. And now fast forward into my adulthood, you get out of college and you probably did the same thing. You're looking for a job, trying to put your stake in the ground, trying to figure out who you are. And I ate too much because it made me happy. I thought it made me happy. Went out too much, spent money I didn't have, drank too much, and ended up gaining over 100 pounds after college and absolutely just hating myself. And I don't use that term lightly, just hating myself. And was in a toxic work environment. I wasn't happy with my body. I wasn't moving. I wasn't staying fit. I wasn't hanging around with the right people. And then through a stroke of luck, I got involved with the right therapist. And on and off, I was with him for, almost 10 years, maybe 10 or 11 years, where he got to really know me and finally use those words, anxiety and depression. Like I didn't want to use them.
Yeah,
I didn't want to use them.
Where that was going to come up, right? Some people are either in denial or not even aware that they have something like that.
I wasn't aware of the anxiety. Like the depression is one of those words where it's like people throw it around like, I'm depressed. It's but I was giving him just a high level view of my life. And he says, oh yeah, that's high functioning anxiety. And I was like, what? And he explained it to me. I was like, I've had that since I can remember memory. Like I've had that. And I'm like, no, not everyone thinks like this or has these ongoing emotions and feelings. He's like, no, this is not everyone, but it's you. So let's work on it. So since then, I've, as you said, I've been an advocate for therapy. I've been an advocate for people finding the right therapist, because a lot of people go in the first time and they just don't feel a vibe. They don't feel comfortable with that therapist, and that's fine. I mean, there's no such thing as a bad therapist. There's just a bad therapist for you. And so that's kind of what got me here.
Cool. Yeah, there's a few things there. And that last comment you made about the right therapist, getting involved with the right therapist, I was going to ask about that because I didn't know if that was a deliberate choice of words. And it sounds like that's pretty critical to your past and also how you help other people. So just dig into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I had a night when I was working. I was in my mid to late 20s, and it was one of those nights. It was a bad night, and I really thought about just swinging my truck into oncoming traffic. Like I really thought, like I was like, someone has to listen to me, and I didn't do it. I ended up calling my EAP at the company I worked for, and talked to a wonderful woman on the phone, and she set me up with a therapist, and it was the quintessential therapist that you see where there's the couch and the corduroys and the loafers and the notepad and all that stuff. And, I'm talking to him and I don't really feel like he's hearing what I'm saying. Like he's doing his job, but I don't really feel like I have a connection to him. So the third session comes up and he kind of ends it with like, well, okay, that's all the time we have, and that's all your EAP affords. And I was just like, exactly.
Jeez.
And I listen, and people have to understand, like when you're a therapist on these programs, you don't get paid as much per hour. Like I understand that part, but you have the ability to say that and say, hey, I can refer you, or you can go through your insurance company. I don't accept your insurance. Like there's so many things you can do. So I had a really bad taste in my mouth for therapists at that time. And I thought that I was just broken. And I got fired from that job, and I totally deserved it. it. And I went to a job that had a manager who cared about me and wanted me to succeed. But I still had these feelings that I was going through, and I go through EAP again. And that's when I find Dr. Nedler. And I remember going through like 6 or 7 sessions with him thinking, okay, when is this going to end? Like, when is this going to end? And I said, one time I was like, okay, so I guess we only got a couple more of these. And he stops me. He's like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, I mean, it's EAP. And he's like, no, one, your insurance covers this. And two, we have a lot of work to do. And I'm going to be with you until we take care of your triggers and get some coping mechanisms, but don't worry about that at all. And it totally like changed my perspective on therapy. And he's a great guy, and we've had a bunch of sessions, and it's one of those things where I'm glad I gave it another chance.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about today was asking for help. And this ties into that, because your story reminds me of so many I've heard where there's various forms of either incompetence or gaslighting or just not a good fit. I mean, that can happen, right? It's just not a good fit. Even with therapy, I've heard stories where just the approach that the therapist takes, even if they do listen, can be a game changer for one person to the other. So, I mean, who do you rely on most now? I guess that's one question I have. And then how can others reach out for help?
Hey, listeners, this is Philip Pape, and I'm excited to announce our upcoming totally free 21-day challenge starting December 1st. It's called the Wits and Weights No Diet Holiday Body Recomp Challenge. This challenge is about learning how to achieve body recomposition. That's building muscle and losing fat at the same time without dieting or restriction throughout the holidays. I'll be giving you free videos, guides, and personalized coaching in a private group chat to help you enjoy the holidays while being satisfied and guilt-free. The kickoff call is Friday, November 17, and the link to enroll is in the show notes. No matter what episode you are listening to, don't worry. If you're hearing this after November 17, you can still register and get access to the replay and resources before the challenge starts on December 1st. Again, to join the Wits and Weights No Diet Holiday Body Recomp Challenge to build muscle and lose fat without dieting through the holidays, click the link in my show notes. Now back to the episode.
I haven't been, when I moved back down to Georgia, my therapist got his temporary license so we could have virtual sessions for a time as I found another therapist, and I got hooked up with a great therapist down here, and I stayed with her for about a year. But then, I noticed that our sessions were going smoother and smoother, and I felt really good. I was in a good spot. And we decided that, okay, it's been good. I'm available if you need me. But, it's kind of like what I tell the girls that I coach at a young age. I'm like, my job is not to coach you forever. Like my job is to prepare you for the future. And I know that hurts. And I know some people like, oh, we want you to like, and I would love to coach them forever, but it's like that doesn't do anybody any good.
That's a form of codependence, right?
Exactly. And I depend on myself making sure that I'm honest with myself, and that I look for the triggers, and I don't just look for time to heal all wounds, basically like I used to, where I would get depressed and I would just say, okay, in a couple of days, in a couple of weeks, I'll be fine, and just ride it out and literally ride it out. And it would be a terrible couple days, couple weeks. But now, there is the positive self-talk. I'm not so negative to myself anymore when I speak. And there's, let's be honest, there's the gym, there's running, there's forms of exercise, there's getting up and dancing at my desk, there's writing, there's, talking to friends that I never used to do before. Like I used to get in a depressed state and go lay down and just lay in the dark for hours at a time and just wait for it to go away. And that's not hyperbole. When there was one time I sat on a couch for 2 days straight and only got up to like check my work computer and to go to the bathroom and eat. 2 days straight. And I was beating myself up internally. I was like, you need to do better. Like I wasn't treating myself like a friend. And now I've turned that around, and I'm, for lack of a better term, I'm cool with myself now. Yeah. We're good.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, that's great. So the gym thing, here's what's interesting is that you were an athlete young, and you went to, like you said, Clemson, the shark-infested waters and all that. And so it sounds like the gym or lifting, exercise, running, whatever, was not a coping mechanism and it became one. So how did that happen?
That's correct. Well, you have to understand, and a lot of people do, like from the time I was 6 to the time I was 21, someone was telling me to stay in shape, and someone was telling me to go for a run, and someone was telling me that I had a game and I had to practice. And I absolutely despised the gym when I was in college and high school. I despised it. I didn't really care for it. It was something we were forced to do. I didn't see any benefit to it. And I kind of just went through the motions when I was there. Looking back, I probably lost a great opportunity to get myself in shape and use that as a coping mechanism. But, when I was gaining the weight, I knew in the back of my head that something had to change. I didn't know what was going to change it, but something had to change. And I thought it was going to be my wedding, and I had 10 months to prepare for my wedding, didn't lose a pound. And then, my wife and I started talking about what our future is going to look like and how many kids we're going to have. And I'm like, okay, well, I want to be around for them, and I want to be able to play with them and practice sports and just go outside and be a dad with them. And that's when it clicked. And I just started running. Like it was like the Forrest Gump thing. I just started running. Like it was hard as hell, but I did it. And looking back, there was 2 things that I did. I'm not going to say I did wrong because that'd be critical. I'm just going to say I didn't know any better. One was the shoes I was running in. I was 6'5", 320, running in some shoes with no support. Okay. Nothing against Nike. I wear Nikes now and Sauconys, but I was running in the wrong ones, and I was running away from my day when I went on my runs. So basically, if I'd be stressed at work, if I'd be stressed at home, I'm going to go for a run and forget about it. And I know some people are listening and like, oh, that's what I do. That's a good thing to do. The only thing about that, for me at least, is that I still had to come back to that. So it ruined my burn at the end. Like I'd feel good. And then I sit back down, I'm like, oh crap, I still have this call to get on, or I still have to deal with this. So
where's the fine line there, right? Between this unhealthy escape and healthy escape. Where is that?
Correct. And the unhealthy escape is basically getting something that stresses you out and saying, you know what, put my shoes on, I'm going. Because you're taking that negative energy. Okay. And what I've done, I've kind of flipped it, is I've seen the stressor come, the trigger come, and I've taken a moment to put perspective around it. How big is this? Is this going to ruin my day? Is this going to burn the house down? Is this, whatever? Oh, it's not? Okay, I need to reframe. I need to refresh. Let me go for the run. Let me hit the gym, and I'm going to lean into it. And what happens 9 times out of 10, especially on my runs, is if I have something that is complex that I need to really think about, on my runs, I get this sense of urgency and this reframing of the issue. And I come back and I'm like, oh, I got it now. Or at least I'm calmer now. I don't try to not think about it during my run. I actually lean into it now.
And use the run to reframe it. Oh, I love that. That is really, I could definitely see that from my personal experience when I'm like doing heavy squats or going for a brisk walk or whatever, where you're just processing. It's a form of meditation in a way, even though you're
exactly. That's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is.
Yeah. So going back a little bit, you talked about a few different phases. First, being forced to do stuff, which I get that, especially as we're kids. I mean, just a trivial example. I grew up in South Florida, and they made us take Spanish when I was a kid, and I just rebelled. I did not want to learn it, and so now in hindsight, I'm like, I should have learned it. That would have been a great. But you're a kid. There's so many things that are different at that age. Then later on, you said that you had an incentive of your wedding, but it wasn't enough, which is what we might call that an extrinsic motivator, and it just wasn't sufficient to overcome the friction against it. And then being a parent helped it click, right? And I mean, to me, there's a depth of meaning there that didn't exist otherwise. Just exploring that a little more, what do you think was the difference? Because for some people, a wedding is enough, perhaps, at least in the short term. Yeah.
My wife and I, before we got married, we were together for 10 years. And it's not as easy as just being together. Like, she graduated a year before me. we live separately. We live in different states. It's like when you add it all up, we were together probably less than 5 or less than 4 together. But we were pretty, you know, we knew each other. We were comfortable with each other. Like there was nothing we didn't talk about. She saw me at the skinniest and she saw me gain this weight. She was not staying in shape either, but she liked salads and I liked hamburgers. So, I mean, you can understand if one person is like, oh, I really feel like a good salad. And I'm like, okay, you get that. And I'm going to get the hamburger and fries.
Sure.
Like which one's going to gain the weight? So it's not like either of us were in great shape. So, although in our wedding photos, like she looks amazing and I look like I'm 320 pounds, but it is what it is. So, but it got to a point, we're living together, we're married, we have an apartment and we're saving up for our first house, and like life is starting to click because it's like, wait a second, like you got married, like you're about to own a home, your kids is next. Like it all started, like something hit me where it was like, I want to coach. Like I want to be the good dad. I want to be the dad that goes out and play. I want to go to the beach with them. There's so many things that I want to do with these kids, that these people I don't know yet, but I don't have the energy to even walk for 5 minutes now. Like I'm not comfortable taking off my shirt at a beach right now. Like it's, and I'm not saying, if you're a big guy, don't do that. Like live your life, like love yourself. Sure. Like I'm, whatever weight I was right now, I'll tell you right now, I'd be cool with that. But I was like, I started to think about my time as a kid and what my parents did for me. And my mother was overweight, and then she lost a bunch of weight and she started hanging out with us. And my dad was always in shape, and he was with us. And I think it just started to click. Like I want to be the father like my dad was. And I can't do that if walking 5 minutes makes my ankles hurt, or waking up in the morning, I have to stretch my back because it's so tight. It's just all these things kind of just threw themselves at me at once. And I said, okay, I gotta do better. I gotta do better. And the biggest part of that actually wasn't even the running. It was really the nutrition. Yeah. And that was a huge part of it. And my wife helped me out a lot with that. We downloaded an app. We started counting calories. We started counting, carbs and sugars and sodium, things like that. And once I made that switch, like I dropped 75 pounds in 9 months.
Yeah, so, you found a way to do it.
Yep.
However you did it, you found a way. Mm-hmm. But roughly how old were you then, if I could ask?
So I got married when I was 31, and this all started to happen around 31 and 32. So literally right after my wedding. So it all happened very quickly.
It seems things seem to accumulate, through your teens and 20s, where you make all the choices that don't necessarily have consequences, and then they start catching up, and you're always in your 30s, around 40. It seems I hear these stories. So let's talk a little bit about your routine, because I do want to get into the physical fitness side. You've alluded to things here and there. You've alluded to running and your nutrition. What is your philosophy? What is your recommendation on working out for people who are listening in general? How does someone get started? Do they go to the gym? What do they do to get going?
Well, I say that, I went through a couple of different things. And of course, I did the whole, I don't know if I can name drop, but a gym that ends in olds and starts with a G. But I did the whole, hey, come in and try us for, a week for free. And you get in there like, how did I end up with a 3-year contract? Like what happened? And so I started there, and it just didn't work out because I went to, I'm a first time gym goer. This is back in my 20s, and I'm going at 6 o'clock at night after work. And it's like, everyone goes at 6 o'clock after work. So couldn't find the machine I wanted, didn't know what I wanted to do. Did I want to run on the treadmill? Did I want to do Stairmaster? Did I want to do weights? I didn't know what to do with the weights other than bench press. Like I didn't know anything. So that stopped, of course. And then... So basically you fit into the exact target market of big box gyms. Come in and then stop coming. Please give us your money. that was me. That was me. And so I just stopped going. And then I started up again. This time I had a friend going with me every day, or every other day, excuse me. But, neither one of us knew what we were doing. And I was getting in better shape, but I wasn't eating well. And so you fast forward to me starting to run. And I will say this about anybody who wants to run or get into a fitness program. Don't join the gym up front, because it involves discipline. It involves commitment. Test yourself. If for 30 days you can go for a walk for 30 minutes 5 times a week, if you can do that, if you can have that discipline, then maybe try the gym. But I would not say go to a gym up front and start going unless your plan is to get a personal trainer, because at least that way you'll learn what you're doing. But of course, now we're talking about spending more money, and people might not want to do that.
Oh, hold on. I think you're hitting on something very important for people, right? Because I didn't have anything stick until I did CrossFit like 10 years ago. And that was because there's a coach telling you what to do. Of course, I wanted them to tell me what to do. Right?
Yep.
And a structure. There's some structure, because we do like to go out get the shiny thing. Even if it's food tracking, if we don't know what we're doing, we just get an app and we just go. It may not be the smartest approach until we take that one first step. Okay, I'm going to track protein, or I'm going to do this one thing. Habit stacking, the traditional, like take baby steps and then it eventually builds. So I think that's really important. So don't necessarily just go to the gym. Figure out what you want to do and take one step first and eventually get there. Yeah.
Yep. And a lot of us have friends that have gym memberships that they tell us all the time they're going to the gym. Like, if that is the case, go as a guest a couple times. Don't just go and jump in, head first, because that's where most of the failure comes from. And it's kind of like I equate it to a New Year's resolution where, every year someone has decided that they're going to get in shape, they're going to eat right, they're going to save money, they're going to get the new job, they're going to marry. All these it's all these things on like, what do you think changes you from December 31st to January 1st? Like, you're the same person. So it has to be baby steps. And the reason I say this is, 1, I've been through it. And 2, this is how you set yourself up for success. This is how you do it. Now, there is someone I know people personally who have gotten that gym membership January 1st, and then you see them in June, you're like, oh my God, you did it. But of the people who do that, 7 out of 10 of them revert back because it's not sustainable what they're doing. What we're trying to do is build sustainability. And that's what a lot of coaches will talk to you about. Once you've reached your target weight, target goals, target fitness level, whatever it is, like the good coach will have already talked to you about sustainability before then. And that's what, I'm training my sister right now, and, she's made very good progress in the few months we've been together. But at the beginning, she had this unhealthy approach to it where she just wanted to like lose this part of her body and lose this weight and fit into this and blah, blah, blah. And I told her, I was like, I can get you down in weight if that's what you want. But 1, I guarantee you're not going to like me. And 2, it's not going to be sustainable. Like, if you want to do hard cardio every day and then, limit your calories to 1,000, like, we can do that, but you're going to be hungry all the time. You're going to be grumpy. Your mind fog. It's going to be hard to work. It's going to be, I went through it. I went through 9 months of that.
Tell me about it. Yeah. And because you said getting a trainer can be not a shortcut, but getting a trainer can at least help you go to the gym or do a program or something like that. As a coach, I would never have somebody dieting until at least 6 to 8 weeks in. And that's a coach. And that's somebody who I'm going to get you the result as fast as possible versus doing it yourself. And yet still, you're not going to be dieting for at least 6 to 8 weeks, if at all, because you may realize building muscle is more fun. But
the only thing I asked my sister to change is when she ate, and to understand where the sugars are coming from. Because a lot of people they'll eat a great protein filled breakfast. They may do a small lunch and then do a healthy dinner and then have 2 glasses of wine every night.
So you said when she ate and sugar?
When she ate and the sugar, where the sugar is coming from.
Was the when to get her to just be aware that she's eating when she didn't realize she was, like unconsciously?
Correct. Yeah. So
good one.
She, she she has the tendency to be a night owl sometimes. And of course, when you're a night owl, you snack and you have another glass of wine, and it's like, you don't see anything of it, but it's like you're kind of taking away your gains if you do that. And, you know, the thing about the coaching and the thing about the personal training is not telling somebody that they can't do it. Like, I'm not going to tell you can't do it. But the fact of the matter is that you might not know how to right now. Like, I didn't know how to cope with my triggers until I went to a therapist. I didn't even realize I had high functioning anxiety. I didn't know that was a thing. You know, it took another therapist to kind of say, hey, talk to your doctor about ADHD, because from what you're telling me, you know, so again, we're not experts in everything in our life. Like that, it hurts to say it to a lot of us, but you know,
in fact, the more that you acknowledge that you're not experts in almost everything, the more you can grow, right? Because then you're going to seek out those experts to help you out. Yeah.
Hi, this is Allan. I just want to give a shout out to Philip Pape at Wits and Weights for his nutritional coaching. His coaching is based upon science, research, intellect, and wisdom. His coaching is safe, supportive, connecting, and it actually has helped reset my compass in terms of how I direct my health, the action steps I do, and really, really has helped me regain trust and belief in what my body can do and how my body can change.
The team that I coach, the soccer team I plays for, is there. The team name is Sky Blue after the WUSA team, but our jerseys are purple. So the girls named themselves the Grapes, the Savage Grapes. So I think it was great. Oh. So we thought of an acronym for Grapes, and the A in the Grapes stands for accept that you don't know everything. That is what it stands for. Because once you accept that, then you're open to learning. You're literally open to learning. And, you know, I started running heavy to begin with, and I didn't want to go. I fell in love with it. I really did. But I also fell in love with limiting my calories and looking at that scale every morning. And if it did not go down by at least half a pound every day, I thought I failed.
Okay, so you're saying this was later, or you carried some of your mental health?
Yes, this is at the beginning of my this is at the beginning of my fitness journey. So when I started to run, and I'm thinking I'm doing the right thing, and the thing about it, Philip, is that people are seeing me and they're saying, "Oh, Mark, good job! You're looking good. You're looking great, Mark. Keep it up, keep it up." So I'm hearing that, and I'm getting validation, and I'm like running more. I do a 5K, I do a 10K, I do a half marathon. I'm killing it. And then one day I hear a snap in my foot when I'm running. And I'm like, no, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. I'll walk home and I'll just ice it. I'll be good. A week goes by. I can't walk on it. Go to a podiatrist. He's like, oh, I think you just did this. Let's wrap it. He wraps it. And, you know, I go on vacation. I come back still swollen. I finally go to ortho. He's like, yeah, you broke it. Mm-hmm. You broke it. And you're going to need surgery. You're going to need 2 pens in your foot. And I was like, so when can I run? Like that?
Of course.
when can I? He's like, well, after the surgery, you're going to be in a soft cast for 2 weeks. Then you're going to be in a hard cast for 6 weeks. Then you're going to be in a walking boot for 6 weeks. And then you're going to be in PT for 3 or 4 months. So he's like, minimum 6 to 9 months. And I was like, my life was running at that time. I had, but like you talk about CrossFit and the people who are just like, that's their religion. Running was my religion. Mm-hmm. I could do I didn't want to go to the gym. People were like, oh, you should try swimming. I don't want to swim. I want to run.
And now it's just ripped away from you.
Ripped away from me. So I go through that process. I gain about 40 pounds back, and I go through the physical therapy, and it's not feeling right. My foot and ankle are just not. I'm still in pain, and I'm pushing myself through runs. Every run hurts. So finally, I go back to my doctor. I'm just like, I don't know what else is going on, and And he tells me, like, I need to go back in. Like, I don't know what happened. I need to go back in and show me where the pain is real quick. And I showed him on the side of my foot. So he goes on my ankle, and he goes in and he gives me a microfracture and cleans up a bunch of, cartilage damage and it was just, thank God, like he said, ask that one extra question. Mm-hmm. And this was all, scoping. So it was, in and out. And within 2 weeks I was walking, and I was like, all the pain is gone. All the pain is gone. I started running again. And this is where like things get bad because I start starving myself and I start running about 120 to 150 miles a week. And I'm 6'5", and I get down to 206. And I still want it. And, my wife looks at me, and people look at me like, okay, like, you're good. And I looked at myself in the mirror. I'm like, I still don't like this. Like, I didn't like 320. I don't like 206. Something's not clicking. And finally, one day I said, and I'd been to the gym again, same thing I told you before is, I didn't know what to do. I was like, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to get a physical. I took the time to work on my mental health with a therapist who was a mental coach. I need to do the same thing for my physical health. And I have never, ever looked back. It was the best decision I have made in the past couple of years of my life because, one, I love to learn. I'm always in a growth mindset. And two, just, being physically strong and mentally strong at the same time. Like I can't really explain that feeling. Like it is euphoric because I was doing one, but not the other. And now I'm doing both.
So I'm missing a little bit of a piece of the puzzle here because I want to connect the physical and mental health, which comes first. And maybe that is too simplistic, but from the point you got your foot repaired, but then you started doing all this running and losing all this weight. And then you said you got a coach and then never looked back. And that, so fill in the specifics on that piece for us.
So, I was in the DC metro area, and a few years ago, I lost my mom, and she lived down here. And my wife and I had made a decision that we wanted to move down here to be closer to my family and her family. And, so the stress of the move, the stress of getting kids into new schools, like everything, I wasn't able to work out that much and I started to gain a little weight, and then I lost it by running. And then, I was doing a lot of work at that specific time mentally. Like I was in therapy. Mm-hmm. I was working on my mental health. I was making sure I was taking care of that every day in the mirror, whether I was at 206, 215, 225, 235, back to 220, back. And you see where this is going, because that's one of the most unhealthiest things to do is yo-yo. I just never was, something was in my head. I knew something was missing. Knew something was missing. And, COVID hits and no one's going to the gym. I'm just running, and still, I wish I could verbalize like the feeling in my head, because don't get me wrong, I looked in shape. I looked happy. You would think he's going to therapy, he's good, but my body, I didn't like my body. I didn't like it. And, I just, one day, the thing about runners, and if you're a runner, I apologize, but this already. If you just run, you're pretty weak. Like it is what it is. Like you're pretty weak. You have your great at endurance. Like you're really using a lot of the long muscles and
you've got the skill.
You got the skill. But oh my goodness, like I went to bench press and I put just one plate on, and I was like, oh my God, this is heavy. Like, why is this so heavy?
Okay. So that's what we're talking about is strength training, because that's where I didn't connect the dots.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was strength training. And
you're speaking my language.
So yeah, exactly. So, I just, and I made the decision. I was like, I'm gonna, and what happened, and I'll tell you right, what happened is I went into my first training session, and it was only 30 minutes. And I felt like I'd been there for hours because this guy was just killing me. I thought he was killing me, but I was just weak at the moment. But, you know, he automatically challenged me. Just like therapists challenge their clients to look for triggers, to, you know, be nice to themselves, to open up, be vulnerable, things like that. That was the first time that someone was challenging me that I didn't really have. I wasn't responsible for going. Like, he wasn't a coach in the fact that how my high school or my soccer or my college coach was, that I had to go to practice. But he was kind of challenging me to be a better version of myself. And I started to look at that. I'm like, there's something here. There's something here that I can connect to what I'm doing in the rest of my life. And I think a lot of people miss that point, Philip. I think a lot of people miss the fact that they see the gym as this place where people go to get big and vanity, and they see that. But it's like, you know what? This is a place where people go to be at peace. You know, this is a part of my day. This is a part of, you know, my morning routine. This is a part of my relationship with my sister. You know, this is a part of, you know, me being a better version of myself. And I think people don't realize that until they're involved with it.
Yeah, man, I totally agree. And those of us who, well, I was never an athlete, and then it wasn't a vanity thing because I just never thought I could aspire to that. And then when I got into lifting, you know, definitely the side benefits are physical manifestation of your health. But you and I were, I don't know if we were talking here. Oh, yeah, early in the show about meditation, about lifting being a form of meditation. And actually, my friend Carl and I, who we both know, we're talking about that on his show or my show, one of our shows, about how you just get in the moment. And it's not just the act, right? It's that you are changing something about you permanently and growing. Mm-hmm. And I guess I don't know much about running other than I've done it over the years and never liked it. To an extent. I like sprinting, I'll be honest, but you can only progress so much in that way doing running. Is that the contrast for me? Because I wanted people to make a very concrete contrast of like maybe the physiological connection between lifting something heavy, being that human experience, being in the moment, and what you get out of it, and comparing to other forms of movement.
I want people to understand this wholeheartedly. Lifting helps your runs, literally helps them. It's not me just saying it, but anyone who's listening who's a runner understands that feeling of like, you know, when you start running, you're like, oh, this is so hard. How do I do this? And you have this thought in your head, like, okay, it's going to get easier and easier and easier. The runs, if you don't do weight training, the runs never get easier. You literally are just pushing yourself through all the time. Like I literally thought to myself, like, okay, it's going to, and mentally I was just exhausted because I'm telling myself to keep going and keep going and keep going, because you don't understand like how much of your core, how much of your hips, how much of your upper body that you actually use when you're running. And I started to build that little bit of core strength in the first couple months of working out in the gym. Every one of my runs was easier. Every one of my runs was easy. And I was going the same speed, going the same distances. And it was all because I built up the other muscles in my legs, my core strength. And I can tell you right now, running doesn't really help you with the weights. Actually, it does the opposite. It kind of kills your gains. I'm sorry. It's true. It does. I've lived it. But lifting helps your runs. It's amazing. And what people don't understand is there's a big thing, especially with women, that say, I don't want to get bulky. I don't want to get bulky. I don't think people really understand what it takes to bulk. Like, none of us are going out eating thousands of calories that we need to burn off every day. Like, you don't just bulk by going to the gym every day. Like, you bulk by your nutrition is how you bulk.
Accident,
yeah, exactly. But I tell you what, if you are eating correctly and, you know, running burns all your carbs and all your sugar, and you put it right back in your body. But if you do the right thing and keep your heart rate at the right levels, and you will build that muscle that you've absolutely killed running. And because think about it, it's physiological, and you know this already. Like when you run, you have little micro tears in your muscles, just like the same when you're lifting weights. But when you run, like when you're burning those calories, those are sugars and carbs, your body wants those immediately. So you put those right back in. It does not help your muscles rebuild. You're literally, your muscles are just healing. Yeah. But when you do the weight portion of it, and you fill that with proteins, amino acids, the fats, things like that, and you actually start building that muscle, it's an amazing feeling. And I think people really should at least try that. You don't have to go heavy. Like no one's saying you go heavy. I'm not telling you to get a.
I am.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
No, go really heavy. Like
heavy is all relative, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't start with 3 plates on your squats, I mean, are we even talking? No, but it's like, and the cool thing about people think I got to get a trainer every day. You can get a trainer for once a week for 30 minutes. Literally once a week for 30 minutes, and that will be enough for a lot of people. That will be enough. And trainers are great too. They're like, if you ever need any help, like text me or call me. Like my trainers, we're friends now. His daughter plays on a basketball program that my daughter plays. We see each other. Like we're friends now. He's cool as hell. So,
I mean, the main thing is having somebody there you could ask a question to. That's sort of what it comes down to. Because I know even to this day, I'm in a barbell club that has a really good trainer, and I've squatted thousands of times, and yet still I'll send him a video and there's some little thing he'll see. So it's worth it for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Man. Yeah, no, I could talk about lifting all day. With the running, one other thing that came to mind is how muscles are also a glycogen sink, you know, so when we're talking about blood sugar control and all that, it's really, really helpful. But running, I mean, it's, you're doing a million partial squats, right? As you run. So even if you don't run, all of a sudden you get stronger. Everything in your life, including running, just feels lighter and easier.
Yes.
Right. Don't we all want that? Like we want to be capable. So, and then it ties into the mental health. So let's segue back to that. We talk about mental health. We talked about psychotherapy and counseling, kind of the more serious aspect of when people have a real issue that they have to deal with. How can someone be aware of that and know that they need counseling? And then what are your thoughts on the psychotherapy? We talked about it a little bit, but just if there's more to touch on that. Yeah.
Well, here, I'll start by saying this. Everyone could benefit from counseling or therapy. Everyone could do it. Like it's not, when you mentioned that I'm trying to get rid of the stigma on mental health, like part of that is understanding that when we bring up mental health, it doesn't have to be this depressing, sad,
fair
my
point,
gosh,
you got me on that. Yeah, fair point.
Yeah. And the thing, but it's not you. It's like we see it everywhere, where it's everything that happens negative in the world or in our lives. Like that's when we start talking about mental health. That's when we start talking about, do you see a counselor? That's like that shouldn't. I don't just go to the gym when I'm weak. You know, I'm going. I went today, and I think I'm pretty strong. Like, but because it's that maintenance of your life. So what I want people to understand is that you don't have to be going through life-altering changes. You don't have to have, witnessed the death of a family member, or just gotten laid off, or broken up with your significant other, or, whatever, to really talk about your mental health. Mental health is when someone's interviewing for a job and they feel those butterflies in their stomach. It's when you wake up in the morning and you think, okay, I gotta, today is going to be the day that it's mental health is all the time. And that's why I think it's so important to at least continue this discussion. And I know people think that I probably talk about it too much. And honestly, I don't care, because I want to talk about it more, and I want people to be okay talking about it and being vulnerable. And it's, it's nothing that has to be prefaced with like something. Okay, hey, guess what? I really need to talk to you about mental. Like, no, it's you coming in and being honest with your loved ones and telling them that you're stressed. telling them that you don't feel up to it today, being honest. And how many times have we forced ourselves to do things that we did not want to do? And the only stories we hear about in regard to that is oh, I didn't want to do that, but I did it, and I'm glad I did. We never hear the stories of I didn't want to do that, I did it, and I feel worse for doing it. We don't hear those because no one talks about that one. That's the one I want to hear about, because someone didn't listen. You didn't listen to yourself. You got it's one of those things where, yes, behavioral based, cognitive based therapy, psychotherapy, all that stuff is great. Getting the right medication, making sure people that are bipolar get the right medication, or major depressive episodes and all that stuff. Like, I want that to, of course, be a focal point. Like, I want those people to be taken care of. But at the same time, I want people to understand that the last time I checked, everyone living and breathing and talking right now has a brain. Last time I checked, feelings come from your brain, emotions come from your brain. So guess what? Mental health is always on the horizon with me.
So many thoughts. You sparked all these synapses in my brain because, oh man. Okay. So there's a bunch of things. I want to break this down. The first thing, the idea that mental health is actually the root of everything that's kind of where I'm glad you kind of ended there, because we were talking about physical health, but none of that means anything unless you have this brain that lets you think and control your muscles and control your hormones. And I mean, it does everything, right? You think about hormones, it controls everything. Let alone the amazing creative thinking and ability to empathize and the ability to know what other people are thinking, which is unique probably to humans, we think. Maybe dolphins can do it or something, we don't know. But and in fact, there's some aspect of human evolution. If you look at how only tribes survived, there's a genetic component to being social creatures using our mind and understanding others' minds. Anyway, I'm going off on philosophy here, but a few other things. I used to be the type of guy that was very cynical about formal psychotherapy. And, I use the word shrink disparagingly in the past and so on. I don't do that anymore, but I've also never sought formal therapy. However, in the last year and a half, 2 years since I've been in this nutrition coaching space, doing podcasting and talking to a lot of people, especially people who caused me to be more introspective, like you, Carl, and many other people that I've met, who also inspired me to look into positive psychology, which is the idea of not always focusing on all the ills of mankind, but even when there aren't ills, that we still need to elevate ourselves. I realize that therapy is all around us if we look for it. It's our spouses, it's our friends. When you help somebody else, the evidence shows you get the biggest boost of happiness just from helping somebody. And then again, podcasting. So this is my takeaway. It's like a really big revelation. And I want people to hear that everybody can be your therapist, so to speak, without seeking formal therapy. But this social connection and relatedness is probably the key the glue that holds it all together. What do you think about my rant there?
It definitely is. It definitely is. And I want people to understand, the first episode of Relatively Normal was titled Be a Friend. And what I meant by that is it takes intent. People need to be intentional with this, but take just the three words, how are you? How many times that's said in a day, how many times you hear that in a week, how many times, how's it going? What's up? Whatever it is. And how many times we actually answer that question. We rarely do. We rarely come off cliche or in passing, whatever. And, my how are yous are authentic. I want to know. And I think more people should want to know, because I forgot who said it to me lastly, but I say it all the time, is you never know what someone is going through. Think about maybe this conversation is the one that saves somebody. Maybe this time I spend is what gets somebody, over the hump. And I don't mean to put pressure on people. That's not the point of all this. What I mean to do is is have people really be intentional with not just the words they say, but the conversations they have, because this is a thing that happens all the time, and especially around men. Like, women do it all the time, but especially with men in corporate environments, especially when women are around, is that think about, I want everybody listening to like the next meeting you're in, the next conversation you have with multiple people. I want you to just count of how many times someone speaks right after someone stops speaking, like literally right after. And then think to yourself, there's no way they could have paid attention or been listening to what they were saying. They were just waiting for their turn to talk. That's all they were doing. And, men kind of do it as banter because it's fun. We go back and forth. We're saying movie lines and we're being stupid and silly. But I can't tell you how many times early in my career, early in my life, where I would be in these circles and people would be talking and it'd be a serious conversation. And right when someone would talk about something that affected them, the next person would talk about something that affected them too. Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. This happened to me and blah, blah, blah. It's like, wait a second. Slow down. We need to go over what this person just was vulnerable enough to tell us about. Let's not just jump into comparisons. And to be honest with you, I really don't care what you have to say right now because my friend is hurting. I don't want to jump in and say, I'm guilty of this. I used to do it. But it's one of those things where you have to be intentional with, as this person is speaking, you're taking in what they're saying, you're being an active listener, and then you're pausing for a moment after they're done talking because you want to take it in. And these are the things that you kind of learn once you do it long enough, and once you start, like, that's what a friend does. A friend doesn't just jump in to say, hey, the same thing happened to me. This is what I did. You should do it too. It worked like a charm. And it's like, oh, thank God. And it's, men, we're built to be problem solvers. I understand that. We shouldn't stop doing that. But at the same time, it's like, listen, not every, screw needs your screwdriver. Like, sometimes you need to sit back and watch somebody else fix their own problems because that's what they want to do.
You got me very hyper conscious right now about my listening skills with everything you just said, because that is so intense, man. Like, it's true that we interrupt and we jump to conclusions, and God, husbands and wives, it's just a classic stereotype of, I immediately want to fix my wife's problem as soon as and look, now I'm talking about myself, but I think I am relating to what you're saying.
No, but my wife
called
me out. My wife called me out on that. She literally did, because we were talking about love languages and what she needs and the quality time she needs. And she told me, she's like, you don't really listen to what I'm saying. You cut me off a lot and then it goes off the rails. And I'm like, oh yeah, I do that. I do that. So now I'm very conscious about getting into a mood where it's like, she is talking. She is explaining her day. She's nice enough to include me in her decompression of her day. Like, that's only I get that. Like, only I get that in this world. I'm the only one that gets that. And I'm taking this for granted.
It's a precious thing. Yeah.
It really is. It really is.
Wow. It's a lot for people to think about. And all this stuff, I would have said a few years ago that, yeah, it doesn't matter for your physical health. And I'm completely the opposite now, right? Like, just, and you put it in perspective throughout this conversation. So I probably have 5 or 10 other questions I could have asked, but since we're short on time, I'm going to leave you with my favorite penultimate question, Mark. And that is there something you wish I had asked you? And what is your answer?
Something I wish you had, I wish you had asked me, how are you? Literally, how are you? No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. I think I did before we recorded, but you know what? We could have just said, "Hey, good," like we always do. I'm joking. I wish you would have asked me, like, how this whole change in my perspective and becoming that whole mind body connection has affected my relationships with people in my life.
That's a good one.
Because it's I'll be honest with you, my circle has gotten smaller and smaller as I've learned more about myself, because you start to figure out where's the positive energy coming from. Because I've become an energy person, not the guy who's going to go buy crystals and lay them out. And I'm not vegan. I'm just kidding. I'm joking. I don't want everybody getting at me, but
I think you lost 0 subscribers of this podcast, so you're okay.
Good. So, but I'm all about the energy I put out and the energy I get in. And I think about, what is this person adding to my life? Because I know I'm confident enough to know that I add to other people's lives. And that's not me being cocky. That's just me knowing what I'm worth. So I think, what is this person? And my circle is actually quite small now. So that's the only thing I wish you would ask, but I think I answered it now.
You answered it. And that's a reminder that it's not about how many friends we have on social media or how many friends we think we have in real life, if they're not real, true friends that add value to us and vice versa.
Correct.
So that's a great message. All right, man. Well, where can listeners learn more about you?
Well, I'm usually on either Instagram or LinkedIn. I do a lot of work on LinkedIn because I like that platform. And but IG, you can find me at Paisant_fitness for the physical fitness part. And you just go to Relatively Normal Podcast on IG to find more about that. And of course, you can head up to 6 a.m. Run on Instagram, as I am the ambassador and host of that show too. So we're doing a lot with 6 a.m. Run right now. So I really like that company. And I think it's not just about running. I mean, a lot to do with running, has a run in the title, but really good people, really good community, and a lot of good motivation there.
Agree. Yeah. And I encourage everybody who's listening to follow those podcasts. It's very easy to do right now. I was on 6 a.m., which I was surprised because I don't run. And you're like, this is not just a running podcast. And it worked out really well because I got to meet you, a very special guy with a wonderful story. And I think people will get a lot from this episode. So thank you so much for coming on.
I appreciate it, Philip. You take care of yourself.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Wits and Weights. If you found value in today's episode and know someone else who's looking to level up their wits or weights, please take a moment to share this episode with them. And make sure to hit the follow button in your podcast platform right now to catch the next episode. Until then, stay strong.